In a quiet Midwestern town, 10-year-old Emily often wandered into her grandfather's barn after school. While most kids her age filled their evenings with cartoons or games, she found herself drawn to the dusty corners where tools hung on nails and old boxes piled high. At the center of it all sat the shell of a car, a 1965 Ford Mustang fastback, its body dulled with rust and time. To everyone else, it was just junk metal too far gone to matter, but to Emily, it was a sleeping giant waiting for someone to care. Her grandfather told her stories about the Mustang, how it once thundered down highways, its engine roaring like a lion, its bright red paint catching the eyes of everyone on the road. He described the freedom it once gave its owner and the thrill of open roads in summer nights. Those stories stayed with Emily, filling her imagination with visions of what the car had once been. One evening, while brushing her hands across the cracked leather seat, she made a silent promise to herself. She would bring the Mustang back to life. She started small. At first, she only cleaned, wiping years of dust and cobwebs off the body and carefully sweeping the dirt beneath it. Then, she picked up an old wrench, almost too heavy for her tiny hands. Each turn of a bolt made her stronger. Each scrape of sandpaper on rusty chrome gave her hope. The other townsfolk laughed when they heard of it. "That little girl thinks she can fix a car older than her parents," they joked. Emily ignored them, her determination far stronger than their doubts. Day after day, she returned. Emily scoured junkyards for cheap replacement parts, spent her allowance on brushes and paint, and begged neighbors for scraps they no longer needed. She taught herself through books her grandfather gave her and repair videos she sneaked on his old computer. Slowly, the Mustang began to change. The lifeless metal started gleaming faintly, its frame standing taller, less like a forgotten ruin and more like a work in progress. Though her hands blistered and her clothes often stained, she felt proud. The transformation was slow but magical. The dull red paint got a fresh coat she applied painstakingly with a brush, smoothing it until it reflected light again. She stitched the torn leather seats with patches her grandmother helped her sew, the needle pricking her fingers but never her spirit. The headlights, once cracked and clouded, were replaced with second-hand ones she bargained for at a yard sale. Piece by piece, Emily gave the car a second chance, as though breathing life into its tired frame with her own determination. What Emily didn't know was that the car wasn't just an abandoned relic. It had a story deeper than the bolts she tightened and the panels she polished. The 1965 Mustang had once belonged to Jack Turner, a young man who had left it in the barn before heading to war 25 years earlier. The town assumed he'd never return, and the car became forgotten, left in silence as the years rolled on. Emily, too young to know the history, only saw possibility. She didn't just want to fix a car, she wanted to restore a dream. Months passed, and the Mustang stood proudly in the barn, looking nothing like the pile of rust it once had been. Emily had poured her heart into it, and though the engine still gave her trouble, the car finally looked alive. On a warm Saturday afternoon, she sat on the hood, wiping sweat from her forehead, when the sound of boots crunching gravel made her look up. A tall man with graying hair and a weathered face approached slowly, his eyes fixed on the Mustang. For a moment, Emily thought she was in trouble. The man stopped a few feet away, his eyes glassy as he whispered, "That's my car." Emily froze, unsure of what to say. The stranger's voice carried a mix of disbelief and longing, like someone who had just seen a ghost. He introduced himself as Jack Turner, the original owner who had left the Mustang behind when he went to war. The town had told stories, but no one had ever expected him to come back. Emily blinked in shock, realizing this wasn't just a car. It was someone's lost piece of life. Jack walked slowly around the Mustang, his hands trembling. As he touched the freshly painted red surface, he noticed the patched seats, the polished chrome, the carefully restored details that showed how much care had gone into the work. "You did this?" he asked softly. Emily nodded, almost shy, worried he'd be angry that she touched something so personal. But Jack only smiled, the kind of smile that carried both gratitude and sadness. "You gave it back its soul," he said, his voice breaking with emotion. Instead of scolding her, Jack offered to help. Over the following weeks, he taught Emily what she couldn't figure out on her own: how to get the engine to purr again, how to balance timing, how to adjust the carburetor just right. The two worked side by side, a war veteran and a 10-year-old girl, united by a machine older than both her parents. In the process, Emily discovered she wasn't just fixing a car, she was helping heal a man who had carried too many broken pieces of his past. One evening, the engine finally roared to life. The sound filled the barn, deep and powerful, echoing against the walls. Emily's eyes widened, and Jack's face lit up as if decades had been lifted off his shoulders. The Mustang, once silent and forgotten, now breathed again. Jack lifted Emily into the driver's seat, insisting she be the first to feel it. As her hands gripped the steering wheel, the car vibrated with energy, and she realized she had achieved what no one thought possible. The surprise came the next morning. Jack returned with papers in his hand. "This car belongs to you now," he said firmly, placing the title in Emily's hands. She stammered in protest, but he explained, "You gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. Now, I want you to keep it, to carry its story forward." Tears filled her eyes as she realized the Mustang wasn't just a car anymore. It was a legacy, a symbol of hope, and proof that determination could change lives forever.